I've just noticed you're Sir Joseph Saki II. Good grief.
Gone via deed poll as well, so it's official.
So, hello everybody. We'll start the show in a second. Have you been watching The Terror?
No.
You got to watch The Terror.
Is it horror?
Ish. Imagine kind of Master and Commander meets The Thing.
Oh, that actually sounds pretty interesting.
Do you know what? It shall we say it borrows a little bit from an Arthur Conan Doyle story called The Captain of the Pole Star, which is about a whaling ship that gets stuck in the Arctic ice, and there's something out on the ice that's kind of like driving the captain mad. But it is utterly brilliant. I think it's probably one of the best television series ever made.
Oh.
Wow. Anyway,
worth checking out. Why am I so tiny compared to? It's like I'm like the little gremlin in the corner. You're just like, is it because you're sort of sat up like this? Hello, everybody.
These cows are small. Those cows are far away.
Yes, indeed.
Which is probably the second best television series ever made. Anyway, hello everybody. Welcome to TV Critics Corner tonight.
Indeed.
Let's have just checked notes. Don't mention the football. Right, Mr. P, how are you?
Well, I have to be honest. I've had better days than today. It was all right until 1:30 this afternoon, and then it sort of dropped into the cesspit of life.
It did. Yeah.
So
you know they say class is permanent, form is temporary. So
I genuinely, taking aside politics and
yes, please.
The important stuff that you have to deal with, life and death stuff and all of that, and all of that kind of nonsense. Genuinely, nothing makes me more upset than football and my team lose. Genuinely cannot get past it.
You know what Shankly said, don't you?
Horrible.
You remember what Shankly said?
Yes.
He said some people think football is a matter of life and death. I can assure you it's much more important than that.
It just genuinely, honestly, I really wish, I honestly wish, I mean this wholeheartedly, because people, if they don't know, my wife is a massive Coventry City fan and has been all of her life. So as a result of that, and because I drive her to the games, I have a season ticket for Coventry City. So I follow Coventry City around the country with Elizabeth, and we watch the games together. And so by proxy, I am a Coventry City supporter because I go to all of the games home and away. But I'm a Liverpool fan as well. So although Coventry City are doing okay this season, and yesterday they got a win against Derby and all that sort of stuff, Liverpool's season has just absolutely bombed.
The toilet. Yeah, gone down the toilet. Never mind. It'll come back. It'll come back.
It took me till about half an hour ago, bearing in mind now it's 7:30. It took me till about 7 o'clock before I started to come round and started to feel even remotely happy.
Well, being told off already. Here we go. Good evening, everybody. No football, please.
No, Tim, you've got to go to a game. Stop being that person. Seriously.
Also, Tim, it's our show.
Exactly. If we want to talk about Liverpool's terminally awful season for the next hour and a half, that's actually our job. We can do that. That
is our job. Absolutely. It's not like we ever go off on tangents on this show ever before in the past. Anyway, we got quite a few things
about The Terror.
Oh, The Terror is brilliant. Honestly, you got to
watch
The Terror.
I've got to check it out.
It's on iPlayer. You can watch the whole thing on iPlayer or watch it as it's being broadcast. But
whilst we're talking about things that have got absolutely nothing to do with this show, Number One Song in Heaven by Sparks is the greatest and most perfect pop song ever, isn't it?
So let's move on.
There we go.
I'd argue Ordinary Life by Duran Duran, but there we go.
Yeah, that's a good shout, actually. That is a very good shout.
One of the finest pop songs ever written. But anyway,
we had a very long conversation about that, didn't we? Going to a model shop, which links back. We were going to a model shop. We were going to see Andy Farmer, and we were driving back. We had a long conversation about that Duran Duran track, and I was in full agreement with you. So anyway, JN, what have you been up to this week that's related to this show before we lose all of our viewers?
Before we alienate everybody.
Yes,
well,
indeed.
I have been working on my Tamiya Panzer 4F, the new kit, and I decided to skip the primer thing because I couldn't be bothered, and I just went straight to plastic with a can of the TS4, which is a beautiful color. And it just, what was that? Well, I just warmed the can up in a little mug of warm water, and then that was all of kind of like about a minute of spraying the upper surfaces, and then when they dried, flipped it over, minute of spraying the undersides, making sure it kind of got in everywhere, but we're not going to worry about that too much at the moment. And then that's it. It dries to an absolutely silky smooth finish. I mean, it's, if you didn't know, if you looked at it on like a blind test, you think it was airbrushed. I mean, you can actually see on the front of the hull there, you can see the reflection from just how smooth that is. This will be the basis for the weathering coats now, and I'm going to go in there with some pre-dusting layers. See, I have been ripping Martin Kovac off again, but I'm going in there with some pre-weathering layers and some other shading and whatnot. Then I will be going back and knocking everything back a little bit with some airbrushed Tamiya. I can't think what the lacquer number is, but just some of that grey. So there's going to be a whole load of layers going on that to start building up the weathering. But I'm not going to go too mad because there's every chance with Panzer Grey, for some reason, I can mess it up. I'm fine with olive drab, but Panzer Grey is one of those colours I need to get my eye in, really. But essentially, I am going to try and really simplify the painting process on this so that I'm kind of literally putting down kind of 2 or 3 weathering layers, and then that's it. Then we're straight on to washes and other bits and pieces. So we're gonna try and keep it simple, try and keep it really kind of streamlined. But beautiful kit, beautiful paint. What more can you say?
I have to say, I really like that colour, and the reason I like that colour is because it doesn't appear to have any blue in it. And often you see Panzer Grey vehicles, and I might have fallen prey to this once or twice, where they're too blue. Panzer Grey was a neutral. It may as well have just been mixed with black and white. It was a really neutral, very dark colour. And often you see that kind of accentuated up and everything. In fact, I did exactly that when I painted the you may remember when I did the Flak 37 for the
medium sea grey,
and I did it medium sea grey. Yeah, I did it. I base coated it with a dark color, but essentially it was medium sea grey because I wanted to lift it up. And I have I've got it. I'm sort of looking at it now. I've got the D version, the older kit, which I will build at some point this year. And I plan to do that in exactly the same way as I did the Flak 37. So mine will be quite a light color, but I do like that one. I think that looks really, really nice. And that color works brilliantly. And I agree with you about those spray cans as well. They self-level. Anybody that's ever used any of the primers will know exactly how well that paint sprays because it's virtually identical. The primer is just essentially, and from what I can see, is essentially a very light grey or a white version of kind of that. I can't see any. It doesn't appear to be anything sort of different constituency wise in that. So yeah, very nice. Looking forward to seeing what you have planned.
Well, the thing is, I mentioned him just now. Actually, is I have been. There we go. Martin Kovac on his Night Shift channel. If you are not a fan of Night Shift, you've got to watch this channel. It's just the best modeling channel out there, and he's actually doing a restoration at the moment of a Panzer II that he built some years ago, which is in Panzer Grey. So I have been kind of taking notes because, quite frankly, you can never be too far down the line in this hobby to start learning new things or relearning or picking up new ideas. And that's the thing I absolutely adore about Martin's channel, is that he has redefined so much of my modeling because it's tweaks, it's little things that I've been doing things a certain way for decades, and Martin is doing almost a similar thing, but he just kind of like goes off on a little side tangent, and then you go, why did I not see that before?
I have to say that I watched a couple of the earlier ones. Shamefully, I haven't watched any of the later ones, but I know you're a massive fan of this. And Brilliant. He's obviously got a huge fan base and everything. He's got a lot of subscribers, so certainly worth checking out if you get the chance to do that. So yeah. As for me, I've had one of those weeks, I have to say, where
well, you've been doing your book, haven't you? Which we'll come to at the end of the show.
Yeah, I've been doing the book. I managed to. I wrote about this in the week. It might be worth spending 5 minutes to explain what I was talking about, because it sort of went off a bit of kind of like tangents, and I didn't mean it to do that. And what I put down, I was actually putting.
Oh, sorry, no, that's all right. We've got a errant page come up there.
Ooh,
no, go on.
What was that? Was a bit disconcerting there.
No,
good job. That was a suitable PG-12 errant page and not anything untoward. So yeah. So I put a post on my Facebook page about this, and I started a build. I think it was on Monday or Tuesday of this week, and I worked on it through the morning till lunchtime, and I just couldn't get into it at all. And I was sticking parts together and thinking, and I thought, this is really nice, it's a nice kit, the detail's great, goes together well, and all of that sort of stuff. And I was just like, I would rather be doing something else than doing.
You're going to name this kit, or is it going to?
No, I'm not, because that would be unfair. I think because it's not the kit's fault. Genuinely, it's not the kit's fault, and because I've had this happen with Micromere kits actually. So it isn't about the kit; it's about my psyche, I think. And one of those things is, and I posed this question, and I'll pose it again so that people can understand. To me, building a model, building a kit is, if I'm not into it in the first hour I work on it, if I'm not hooked in that first hour, I'll never finish it. It's as simple, straightforward as that. I'll box it back up and I'll never go back to it. And I've done that dozens and dozens of times. There's something about it. It's a bit like watching a television program. If I don't engage with it within the first 15 minutes, or a film, I just will switch it off. I'll turn it off and I'll go and do something else. And I feel the same way about my kits and the models that I build, that I have to be fully engaged. When I built those 2 tiger moths, which I did earlier on this year, and the panther actually, funnily enough, I was instantly captivated by it. I just went, I opened the box, I started gluing the parts together. I was instantly taken, and I was off and running with it. This one, I was like, yeah, and I love the airplane. I love everything about the kit and all that sort of stuff. Couldn't get into it. Couldn't get into it at all. And it's back in the box. And I just don't think I'm going to go back to it. I think I'm going to move on to something else. And so I posed the question: Does anybody else feel like this? Does anybody else have to have that instant hook of a project, or sometimes do you force your way through that? I think that's part of the problem. Sorry, John, to cut across you. I think that's part of the problem. I don't feel anymore that I want to force myself to do something I don't want to do. I have to want to do it straight away. And you remember the T4 Harrier that came through, the kinetic one? I wanted that kit for a very long time when it first got announced. I built the cockpit parts for it, and I built some of the airframe, and I was like, it's just another Harrier.
You surprised me.
And I didn't want to build it, and it's up in the loft. And from that first morning, I haven't opened the box, and I've had that kit since it came out. 3 years ago? Did that kit come out 3 years ago? I haven't even looked in the box. Not interested in it at all. And yeah, it's my favorite version of the first generation Harriers. It's a brilliant kit. Just don't want to build it.
The thing is, I went through not something similar, but if you remember the Italy summer venter that I was building, there was nothing inherently wrong with the kit. I just, for some reason, I really struggled because, just motivation. I'm a little bit like that at the moment. I've kind of like, I could have got farther along with the Tamiya Panzer IV over the last few days, but I've just, I've been doing other things. Actually, I've been deckling that Tornado. I forgot to mention the Tornado, the Italy Tornado, which is coming together fine. It's shall we say, it's an illustration in how well decals stick to glossy surfaces without any need of any setting solutions whatsoever. And it's
yes, because of those sticky stickers.
That's actually something I didn't mention in the Starfighter write-up that I did, which was that at one stage, I do mention it. I refer to the fact that on those model decals, I had to wash the adhesive off because it's
Oh,
that
really?
thick. It's that thick kind of gloopy, kind of milky adhesive, and you can see it, and it also kind of, it's gummy. It's horrible. So every decal, I had to flip it over and wash the adhesive off. They still stuck to the surface though.
Yeah.
And on one occasion, I actually finished the model. I was looking at it, just about to put the sealing varnish coat on, and suddenly realised I'd actually put the nose codes. I actually put them back to front, and actually put the decal on backwards, where I'd been washing the adhesive off. I'd actually put the outer surface onto the model, but it still stuck to that surface because the surface was Tamiya XF22's clear, super shiny finish. So, we'll probably talk about that another time. But
it's just an odd thing, just an odd psychological thing. Even if I absolutely want to build the model and I want to finish the model, I've been known before now. This is how bad this is for me, and it's been like this for years. This is how bad I've been known to remove the cockpit tub from the sprue, the control column from the sprue, and glue the two things together. Cut away the instrument panel, so that's the next bit within it, and go, I don't want to build this anymore. How long does that take? That's literally 5 minutes of time that I've put into it. But I think maybe it's just the way that I operate. I know instantly if I'm going to enjoy a project and I'm going to take it to fruition and I'm going to get the best from it. I know before I start. And the reason I do that is because I always have an image in my head exactly how the model is going to end up. I know what it'll look like when it's finished. And I never ever deviate from that. Even a diorama, never deviate from that. So the Tornado, when I did that, I knew what markings it was going to go on. I knew what weapons I was going to put on it. I knew how the finish was going to go. I knew how the weathering was going to go. And I'd already looked at it complete on my desk, finished. And I never deviated from that. If I can't picture the model finished, I don't even bother starting it really in anger. And I kind of move on. So it was just a question that sort of was put out there. Maybe we've all got different sort of approaches to that, really.
Christopher Buchholz in America says, I do a lot of research before I ever start a kit, so I have a scheme, a story, and a person in mind, even if it's an aircraft I don't love. My research is like a PR campaign targeted at myself for the model, which is actually
that's a great way of describing it. That's brilliant.
Yeah, that is actually a pretty good way. To some extent, something has to go catastrophically wrong with the model for me to suddenly start losing enthusiasm. I think I'm possibly still, I still have that latent kind of thing of every model feels like it's kind of like slightly precious, as much as I don't want to mess something up, because I would never have done that as a kid. Just to have actually physically had a model to build, I wouldn't have cared if it had gone wrong. It was just, I'm so glad I've actually got something to build. And I think even as an adult these days, relatively speaking, even, I'm building something, and even if I'm thinking I'm really not into this, I don't like the waste. I don't like the waste of my time that I've already invested in it. It's like, it's that Robert the Bruce thing. If I've done it, I'm going to finish it. The
other thing I think I find as well is that when I'm planning a project, or when I'm choosing a project to do and all of that kind of thing, I instinctively know how long it's going to take me.
I don't.
And usually that's within a day, usually. So I will know, if I'm working on something, I'll think, I know this is going to take me till this point to finish off. I know how long it's going to take. So I mentally allocate time to certain parts of the job. I've been known before now to talk myself out of a project because I have a set idea of how things are going to fit in. And if I think that something like a finish or a part of the model is going to take me longer than I find acceptable to my project, I won't even start it. The only exception to that was the Harrier T2 conversion, which was an open-ended project that I started and basically just ran away from me, and I had no idea what was going on by the end of it. But if I feel that a model is going to take longer than I think is acceptable to a project, and I won't start it. So I wouldn't start a model today and think I'm going to I'll carry on working on this for the rest of the year into next year. That won't happen with me. So I think that's part of it as well. Somebody's put, have you got undiagnosed ADHD? Maybe I have ADHD.
Oh, I think modelers to some extent are. I think we all, to a larger or small degree, are compulsive obsessives.
Yes,
if we weren't,
definitely.
We wouldn't be doing this hobby.
You definitely wouldn't. And you certainly wouldn't be doing this job. You'd be doing something that was.
Shall we actually get on with the get on? We've got 5 minutes to go. Let's talk about all the things now. Let's talk about things that have turned. Well, we've got some things that have turned up at Interesting HQ, and we've got some new kits that have been announced this week. But let's start off with things that turned up at Interesting HQ, and they are
the Fine Molds F4 Phantom. Frome Model Centre, and there's the link for anybody that wants to check this out. Frome Model Centre have kindly donated to me 2 Phantoms, 2 F4s, and a weapon set. They've sent us the F4EJ, the stock version of that, and they've also sent us through the upgraded F4EJ Kai. The Kai is that one there. Anybody that doesn't know, the Kai is an upgraded version that the JASDF use. It's got upgraded avionics, upgraded self-defense suites, radar, instruments changed in the cockpit, all sorts of little details that have kind of been altered. I also believe it's got higher capacity for carriage of ground attack weapons as well, which the previous version doesn't have. It's an upgraded package, anywho. Essentially, the 2 kits are similar. What we'll show you here is the kind of the parts layout that you get. These are a comprehensive box of tricks. There's a lot of parts in these 2 kits. But that doesn't mean that they're over-engineered. They absolutely aren't over-engineered. They're kind of traditionally broken down. But what Fine Molds have done is that they've allowed for the change across the 2 variants. You can see from the previous picture and from this one, these are all of the plastic parts that are included in the kit. You'll notice from the first photograph that they've broken the rear fuselage down in much the same way that Academy broke theirs down, and Tamiya have broken theirs down as well, in that it is a single part onto which you have an upper panel that follows panels on the real aircraft, and that allows for that kind of blown shape to be created in one part, rather than in traditional Phantom kits where you've got 2 fuselage halves that need to be cleaned up. This one pretty much doesn't, and from what I can see of this, assembly of this will entail parts dropping onto natural panel lines, which will mean that in terms of cleanup there will be very little. I can see that there might be some, just grabbing the instructions, there may well be some around the nose, at the front of the nose, in front of the windscreen, but kind of beyond that there isn't. There's kind of very little. In fact, that's not true either, because there is an upper panel onto which the windscreen sits that fits on top of the nose. So I think I'm feeling that you may well be able to build this kit without cleaning up any joints on it. Wing leading edges, and maybe under wing drop tanks, under fuselage tank as well. Maybe the only areas where you're going to actually have to sand seams down, which makes construction extremely straightforward on this kit.
It's a very, very reminiscent, actually, of the Tamiya 48 scale Tomcat.
Indeed, they've sort of gone down that kind of route, and it seems like a lot of Japanese companies are doing that now. They're creating models where parts fall onto natural panel lines to allow modelers the chance to put them together without destroying any of the petite detail. Now, that's a point that needs to certainly be spoken about in this kit, because the panel line detail is so delicate. It's beautiful. It's certainly the amongst the finest I've seen in a 72nd scale kit. Anybody that's seen any of Edward's 72nd scale kits, or indeed some of the later Tamiya ones, such as the Zero, will have seen panel lines that are like this. The panel line detail is really beautiful. And one of the slight concerns that I've got is that at some point while I'm painting this, I'm going to need to wash those panel lines, and they are so delicate. I'm not sure how much they will hold a wash. So we'll see how that works out. One of the neat things that I like about this is, again, very much like other Phantoms, such as the Academy one, and I think also Zucchimura's 48 scale kit, is that the rear hot end of the aircraft around the jet pipes is created as a separate sub-assembly that can be presumably painted and detailed before fixing it to the underside of the tail, which not only means that you're going to get a much sharper demarcation between the metalwork and the grey surrounding fuselage colours, but also it's just going to make it easier because you can paint this and mask it off and mask off the various panels around this area and then just drop it in. Dropping it into place, I think the last time I did one of these, I think I dropped it into place and fixed it in place with Johnson's Clear, actually, to allow it to kind of go where it needed to go without it coming out. As long as it doesn't hold any weight, I think you'll kind of be okay with that. The tail planes fit into are slotted into this part of the model with these tabs, and you can see on here that they've got sort of almost like male and female slots that go together, which will hold them at completely the correct angle. The only slight downside to that, and I understand it because it would have complicated matters way too much, is you can't have the tail planes at slightly deflected angles. Should that be something that you would like, because obviously the fish plates are on the side of the tail, and the tail planes will just slot into those fish plates, and they are fixed where they need to be. But again, you'll be able to paint these tail planes, drop a little bit of Tamiya white cap into one of the slots, slot them into the fuselage, they'll hold there, it'll be a perfect joint. So that's kind of really neat as well. Cockpit on this model, this is the John's put here, this is the kind of detail that you get inside where I think this part goes in at the back of the intakes. I'm just having a quick look. Yeah, it does. So this part will be visible through the open intakes, and there's also another picture later on which will show the jet pipes. The jet pipes are really deep on this model, and they've kind of, there you go. So they've molded them so that when you look inside the jet pipes, you get a sense of sort of full kind of depth. Talking about the intakes as well are created so that you have the sides of the nose is glued together, two halves of the nose are glued together, and then you have tunnels that fit onto the side of the nose. That gives you full depth intake trunks as well that go all the way down to those faces. So once again, there's not going to be any areas within the model where you're going to look at it and go, actually that just looks like a big hole. You are going to be able to see right the way down there, and as long as you've painted the intakes in a pale color, it's white on the Phantom, and then those kind of turbine faces, for want of a better description, you'll see plenty of detail. Cockpit on this is multi-part. There are lots of pieces that go together with this, and as with some of the newer Phantom kits, in order to allow different versions to be created, in this case the EJ and the Kai, they offer separate side consoles and instrument console and instrument panels, so they are different. They, from what I can see, they're slightly altered across the two versions. They are separate parts. Not only does that allow the detail shifts between the two versions, it also means that they are going to be simpler to paint as well, because you can paint the cockpit up in its pale grey color, then you can paint the instruments and then mask off the grey parts and then just glue them in place. Nice and easy. Seats, which you can see here, are multi-part as well, and they come as these are the sides of the seats, and then obviously you get separate cushions and that kind of thing. Fine molds offer an additional set for this. They call it nanotechnology from what I've read on the side of the box. They call it nano aviation. That's how they word it. And it's a set of plastic seat straps that go onto these very small ejection seats. So that's a nice kind of detail that you'll be able to add to the model, which will bulk out the detail within the cockpit. There's also sidewall detail, from what I can see, or small amounts of it within the nose, but the actual nose, the interior of the Phantom's cockpit is a very complicated box of tricks. There's lots of different boxes inside there. Also, all sorts of things running around the sills and that kind of thing. So anybody that wants to add to this model will be able to add a lot of detail to that. This gives you an indication of the kind of levels of detail that you can expect from this model. This is, I'm just having a quick look. I'm sort of flicking as I'm talking to you. I'm flicking through the this is one of the bays that fits underneath the engines on the sort of central belly of the aircraft, and it gives you an idea of how much detail is in that. Not a lot of this is going to be seen once the doors are in place, but it gives a fair idea. Undercarriage bays are nicely detailed as well. So again, once those are joined with the undercarriage legs, and you get to paint all those either from the box or adding some additional detail, you'll start to get an impression of the complexity of this kit and how far fine molds have pushed their detail, and also the molding of what are in essence some very delicate parts on this model. This shot here shows some of the variations with it across the two kits. The central runner is from the Kai kit, and that shows you the modified radome, shows you modified wingtips for the main wings, and also shows you as well the different instrument consoles, the side consoles and the instrument panels for this kit. You can, if you look at the two outer wing panels, you can see the modifications to the I'm assuming they're countermeasure suites on the wingtips, and also you can see the kind of on the radome on the Kai, it's got kind of ridges running around it. You can see on here, so it gives you an idea of how much they've sort of gone to create that. I kind of like the Kai version actually. It's quite punchy looking.
I've also noticed that they give you can see it on this shot, they give you two variations of the instrument panels, one flat that you can slap decals onto, and the other one with molded detail. And they haven't done that with the side consoles, but they certainly have done that with the instrument panels.
And one of those things, one of the things that I may well experiment with as well is settling those decals down over the raised detail on both, because by using Mr. Mark Softer and Setter, I have a feeling that if those decals match in terms of dimensions, that I'll be able to get instrument decals for both to settle over the raised detail and give a much more three-dimensional look. So I'm going to have a bit of a play with that and see how that works. It's certainly something I've done in the past, numerous times actually, and instead of removing sort of painting side consoles and that kind of thing, if there are decals in the kit, then I'll try and use those as much as possible. So I'm going to give that a go, I think, and see how that works. In this shot, you can see the quality of the detail on this. The surface detail is really superb, and also the quality of the molding. I noticed on a couple of the parts there was the tail planes mainly, but that's probably because they're about 1/5 of a millimeter deep. There was a very tiny bead of flash around them, but it's so
there'll be complaints.
It's so delicate. So you can kind of see, the level of detail. That detail is right across the board, right across the airframe of this. It really is fabulous, I have to say. The next image, this is the decal sheet for the the EJ version, the stock version of this. This is the one that I requested because I like that stylized eagle that's on the tail. That would be always the one that I would kind of choose for this version of the aircraft. There are lots of color schemes for F4 EJs in Japanese service. There are obviously based on these stock grey and white aircraft, but this one offers two versions, two different aircraft. First one is an aircraft. It says JAA SDF APW. I wonder if that's Test Squadron from Gifu Air Base. The other one is my choice, which is the 302nd Squadron, Chateau's Air Force Base or Air Base. So that's the version that we're going to choose. The color scheme for both of those is pale grey over white, which is kind of cool. The second one, the Kai, has got two alternative color schemes, and these ones are essentially in kind of mod eagle schemes. So they're in two-tone grey with the sort of the kind of that sort of scalloped paneling on the upper wings. And these ones are from the 306th Squadron at Komatsu Air Base and the 301st Squadron from Hyakuri Air Base. And again, they've got badges smaller badges on the tail that sort of befits their more toned down markings. However, I've got a 48 scale decal sheet that shows those squadrons having aircraft that are painted in different color schemes, which might be interesting for me to have a look at. Some of them, you know, with green panels on them, one of them with orange panels on, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to investigate that. Now, slight elephant in the room, which leads us to the third package that we were sent, is that fine molds, very much like Hasegawa, offer you only drop tanks with this kit. They offer the centerline tank and also the underwing tanks. As far as I can see, there isn't anything else. Before I make that rather kind of blunt statement, there isn't anything else in the box. No. So you can see here that you've got in the top left hand corner, you've got tanks there. Two different types of under fuselage tank, actually. The standard F4 tank, which is the ones in the top left corner, and then the F15 style tank, which is the one that is in the bottom right hand corner. You can see on that little runner. Now, so if you want a loaded aircraft that has missiles on it, you're going to need to find those from somewhere else, and that's where then their other set comes in. This is the third kit that we were sent. This is Japan Air Self-Defense Force missile set, and it offers a whole bunch of different weapons to go with these aircraft. However, they're kind of generic as well. So they're not JASDF specific. These weapons would fit on a load of other aircraft as well. So if you were to buy this set, it's not just for Japanese aircraft. It is for others too. And inside the box, they give you two lots of these. So this is there are two packages that contain essentially I think they give you 4 Sparrows, 4 Sidewinders, 4 AMRAAMs, all of those kind of things, and you can see. So take this picture twice, and that's what you get inside the box. Again, detail on these is really nice. They're molded really nicely. The way that they're packaged and the way that the way that they've been molded with the runners with this big ridge running around the outside means that inside the box they don't get damaged. They're very delicate pieces, these little missiles. So it was nice to see that they had their own kind of protection as well within the box. You get a full suite of decals that goes with this. All the stencils that you need for these missiles are included within this package. So for those of you that don't like stickers with lots of stencils on, then this might not be the kit for you, given that the base Phantom has also got lots of stencils on it as well, as can be seen there. I should point out as well that the decals are beautiful across the board. They're everything Hella decals aren't. I think is fairly safe to say. They are fairly typical of Japanese decals. They're beautifully printed. The colours are fantastic. And before anyone says, yeah, but Japanese decals are really thick on the sheet and everything, yeah, that's why you have to use Japanese setting solutions like Mark Softer and Setter. And if you use those, they will settle down and they'll look brilliant once they're in place. These are great. Also, don't be too put off by the amount of stencils that are on the sheet, because a lot of those stencils form blocks as well. So you're not putting individual little markings around. So as I love putting on decals, it is my favorite step of any model that I build. I'm really looking forward to putting those on and giving it a go. Overall, I have to say that I'm extraordinarily impressed by these two Phantom kits. They are really superb from start to finish. Taking the weapons issue out of the way, which is, anybody that builds 72nd scale aircraft probably got those weapons somewhere else anyway. They are really superb. They're beautifully molded. They're superbly detailed. They're just a fabulous package. There are others within this range as well. I've seen some that have different camouflage schemes as well. So these are two of a family, I think, of F4EJs. You will be able to build F4s from the F4Es from these as well. So if you wanted to build an American Air Force One, if you can source decals, you'll be able to do that. Andy's put, is this the best F4 in 72nd scale? Having seen F4s from elsewhere, such as Academy, which is kind of a benchmark thing, I think you would have a big argument on your hands to suggest they're not. I think is the best way of putting it. I haven't seen all of the 72nd scale F4s, but I've seen plenty of them. There isn't one that's better than this in this scale from what I've seen. This is to the F4 Phantom in 72nd scale what Academy's F14 was to the Tomcat in 72nd scale. It's kind of pushed the level up to another level. And I think anybody that's going to be following on from this is going to have to work hard to create a Phantom kit that's better than this one. Are we going to get other versions? Probably, I would think.
I was looking at the breakdown of those, the way they've broken it all down, and to me, it looks like it facilitates other versions.
I would imagine that they must be looking at short-nosed Phantoms at some point, because you've got that rear fuselage and the wings, and all of those kind of changes to the tailplanes with all the slotted tailplanes and all that kind of thing. It makes sense to me to suggest that they will do other versions of this. So this looks like it might be the jump-off point for a family of Phantoms. Anybody that's interested in the Phantom and likes modeling in 72nd scale will not be disappointed with these kits at all. I have to say that. I cannot wait to get started on one of these. Contrary to what I said earlier on about actually getting going, I haven't started on these yet because I wanted to do this first and kind of get this out of the way. But I think we are looking at the benchmark currently for the F4 in 72nd scale with fine molds.
Now, Craig Sargent says apparently it's ABS plastic is used in the nano aviation sets, which I get the feeling probably means that they can be. I think ABS is going to be a little bit more robust than polystyrene, but probably it means that they won't melt when you apply them with liquid cement. I think you have to use super glue anyway, but or something like, I think you can probably use mech with ABS plastic, can't you?
You can, yeah. The other thing that they do as well, which was mentioned on the boxes, a la master models, they do a pitot set as well, which is from what I can see is in metal. So that's a complete kind of package. So very much like Zucchimura's approach to the Phantom, where they offered add-ons to the kits. This is along those lines. Can't tell you how, I can't stress enough really how impressed I was by these. And I refer back to the Academy F14 that I did last year, I think. Yeah, last year. And how impressed I was when that kit came out. Unlike what we saw with the Academy F14, which seems at the moment to be a standalone product, this looks like the start of a family, and I can't wait to see what they come up with. So thanks very much to Froome for allowing us to take a look at these two kits. They are superb. And
I think they are. I think they're doing them for $34.99 at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that is that is good value for money for what you get in the kit, because certainly you're getting in these 72nd scale boxes pretty much what you're getting from some of the comparable kits in 48 scale. There's very little difference in terms of it's only size. That's the only difference I can see. You're still getting all of the same sort of breakdown of parts, the same level of seemingly the same level of accuracy, the same level of finesse in these. They're just smaller, but absolutely fabulous. They are really something to behold. So hopefully this time next week I'll have done some work on them, and I can give you a bit more indication of how they're going together, and what they're likely to look like.
Well, a big thank you to everybody who's watching tonight. Unfortunately, we haven't got time to rattle through the names this evening, but you're all there. So all shake each other's hands. Thank you for attending. We do appreciate the support. We will rattle on to another new release that has been announced this week. And this is kind of like building on ICM's extraordinary kind of Chernobyl themed kits that they've been doing. This one, I think, is particularly brilliant. They're doing a set of civilians, and this is listed as Chernobyl extraction. Now, obviously, these have applications outside of the description that they're giving you, as being linked to Chernobyl. These are essentially 5 figures here. You've got a young man and a young woman with hastily prepared kind of like belongings. You've got an older gentleman with a flat cap and a moustache checking his watch, and then you have a young mother and a daughter. I mean, these are pretty much universal for so many kind of decades, really, from about the 1980s onwards. You could use these. You could probably use these for contemporary now, quite honestly. There's a certain ageless quality to them. These are only prototypes, as you can see, because these are images from ICM's Facebook page. But in terms of just one of those kind of figure sets that you could buy and then just use in any kind of modern setting, with even if you just have to do some modifications, these look fabulous. They just look absolutely terrific. And yeah, I mean, I'll be grabbing a set, even though I'm not doing anything kind of Chernobyl, related. But these just, like I say, what can't you use these on?
I mean, you could certainly swap arms around where they're carrying bags. You could have them doing kind of all sorts of positions. But I certainly see potential for these being used all over the place. They certainly will be. And they look great. They look very natural as well, which I rather like. So we've mentioned this before. I mentioned it last year when we were doing dioramas. There's very few civilian figure sets, modern civilian figure sets in 35th scale that you can use. Plastic ones, you can buy them. Reed Oak may make them in various scales, but in terms of plastic kits that are readily available from old shops, they're very few and far between. So to see these figures appear was rather nice today. I agree. They are specific to their Chernobyl list of kits. They've obviously been going down that route for a few months now. But they may as well just be generic civilian figures. That's how I see them. Yeah, they're great. Really like them. So we don't have any release date.
No, it's very early days of these
prototypes. So.
But you also know that they'll be eminently affordable because they're ICM. So
yes,
but I'm absolutely sold on them. So I will be bagging a set. Because again, I never count figures as kits. Figures and accessories, I don't count them as kits, because you just dip in, take what you want, and take out what you don't, and leave behind what you don't need. However, this next release definitely is a kit.
It is a kit, and it's another prototype that we've sort of nicked the pictures from, but it's from Micromere, and they are about to do a 48 scale Venom, which is this little beauty here. I have to say that whenever I see a Venom, I get all sorts of confused and all sorts of beside myself, thinking, right, what's the difference between a Venom and a vampire?
The wings.
So So tonight I did a little bit of research and everything
Uh-oh.
on these things, and realized that the Venom was actually developed from the Vampire and was going to be a Vampire variant, and then it became a standalone airplane with a different engine, but it's got different wings and all that sort of stuff. But essentially, although it looks like a Vampire, and the reason we mention the Vampire is because Airfix are about to produce one in 48 scale, it is a completely different airplane. It's got the same layout, but it is a different airplane. It's not the same, and it has different wings. It's got swept back. It's got that sort of wing sweep that you can see here, and it is a very important release for modelers of RAF post-war jets. A lot of these were used by the RAF. I saw for the first version, I saw a number of 375, which is a lot of airplanes. So whether or not that's actually the correct number, I don't know. But this is going to stand alongside the Vampire that Airfix is going to produce and allow you to have both of those important jets side by side in your collection, and also it opens up possibilities for other variants of the Venom because it was used elsewhere, and that including the rather pugnacious sort of pointed-nosed version that the Swiss used. I think there's a Venom in the Cosford Museum, actually, in Swiss Air Force colours.
I believe there is.
So you can sort of take a look and also stand by it and see how tiny this thing is.
Yes.
You could probably fit it in my workroom. It's really, really tiny little thing. So go and have a look. We have no further details on this model other than the schematics that you're seeing here. I wouldn't, these aren't even really CAD renders. These are just drawings that give an indication. Sketches of the of how this model will look. We don't have any idea of sort of internal details or smaller parts, color schemes, nothing. We just have this as our sort of guide to this kit coming out. But we are looking forward to it, aren't we? Because it is an important release.
Yeah, like I say, export versions as well. I think they were actually flown in desert camo by the Iraqi Air Force at some stage.
I think they were, and I think they were at a point, weren't they, with the RAF where camouflage was coming in for these aircraft as well, or sort of in that transitional period. So and they have lots of like nice squadron markings before the RAF discovered grey airplanes and painted everything in light grey.
Let it go.
I can't. It's such a fundamental slight to the aviation world. I really think that the person that decided that all modern aircraft should be painted in light grey should be taken into a field and tarred and feathered, or
made to serve on HMS Terror.
On HMS Terror.
Actually, I just got to ask: Have you ever read The Shepherd by Frederick Forsyth?
No,
never read The Shepherd by Frederick Forsyth.
No.
Okay, it's a book he wrote years ago about a young vampire pilot who's flying back to England on Christmas Eve, and then he just loses all his instruments.
All right.
And then things happen. Ooh. It's a very good book, actually. If you go online, you'll probably find on YouTube Robert Powell reading it. It's very good. It's a perennial Christmas favourite of mine to listen to The Shepherd by Frederick Forsyth.
You should read it as one of your.
Actually, I was thinking of doing that. One of your ghost stories.
Yeah. Do that.
Yeah, I might do that. I might do that this year, actually, once I get the library sorted out and everything. Let's move on to, how about this then? A kind of adjunct of, or a side kind of company to Micromere is AMP, and they're releasing a 1/48 scale kit of everybody's favourite, the Bendix Model J.
What on earth is it?
All I know is I think I want one. Now, okay, I'll give you a bit of context.
It looks like a bed that they've attached rotors to.
Yes, isn't that an advert on television with beds?
It's like a helicopter that mated with a 1970s headboard.
It's a helicopter that mated with a duvet.
Look at it.
Apparently, the it was developed by Bendix helicopters in the mid-1940s. They tried to sell it to the US Navy, but they weren't terribly interesting. Apparently, it had a top speed of about 110 miles an hour, and it was powered by a Pratt & Whitney R985 Wasp Junior V4 engine. It's just one of those aviation dead ends. It looks fabulously weird, but also you can almost understand the US Navy going, "Yeah, we'll pass on this one, lads."
I don't think we'll do that.
But it does. It just looks fabulously odd, and I'm going to be keeping an eye out for one of these because this does kind of fulfill my. I do like niche subjects sometimes, and if this is, if this is any good, this is almost the flying equivalent of the mini arch tractors. It's just utterly bonkers. It's 148 scale. Must point out it is 148 scale, but I just like the look of this. It just looks...
I think it's so fabulously off the wall that it looks like the sort of thing that you would have a lot of fun building, really. Especially you open the doors and so you see the inside. Also, is it painted gold?
I was just going to say it appears to be painted gold. How many times? I mean, all I'm thinking is possibly Royal Canadian Air Force F-86 Sabres, Golden Hawks, but how many times do you ever get to slap some gold paint on an aeroplane?
I think I've only ever done it once, and that was an American Air Force F-16. That was in a commemorative colour scheme, and that was painted gold. I think it had black trim on it. Going back, when would that have been? 50th anniversary of the United States Air Force. Yeah, I guess it would be 50th anniversary, and it was an F-16. Would have been a C back then, and it was painted in gold. Yeah, but I have to say, joking aside, as it's a kind of an odd footnote, but I do think it would make an interesting model. And presumably it's tiny as well in 48 scale. I mean, it's probably about the size of an egg, isn't it?
It literally is an egg craft. If Hasegawa were to do an egg craft version of that, it would just look the same.
Yeah, it wouldn't look any different. But just think of the what if potential with that in US Navy markings with little stud pylons on.
I don't like what if stuff. I don't like it. I just think build a model of something proper, for goodness sake.
Oh, you're just an old curmudgeon. That's what it is.
I'm in a bad mood because of the football. Anyway, right,
could work out kind of cool.
Yeah. Ting! I'll bring the bell in at some stage, but ting! Any other business? Yes, you do.
I do have some other business. Yes. Yeah. Thank you for allowing me to be completely self-indulgent for the second show on the shop. Right. Yeah. I mentioned this the other day that I'm doing an F-104 Starfighter book. So if anybody's a bit bored of me mentioning this, but I have actually now designed half of this book, so it is ready to go. That is the front cover. You've all seen the front cover, but these are I think John posted some of the early early sort of layouts that I did last year. The book has been completely redesigned from those early layouts, and it now follows closely the Tornado book that I released last year in terms of design and the way that I've gone. So far, I've shown you that there are 3 models in this. There is this one, which is Monogram's 148th kit, which goes nicely with the discussion that we had about on monogram kits the other day. So I've done 48 scale monogram kit. Then there is this one here, which is the sort of the core feature of the book. This is Italer's 32nd scale TF104G. And this is a full step-by-step on this build. Then we've also got within this little section, John has done a Matchbox TF104G as well, which is in Dutch colours, which you can kind of see here, and complete with model decals, which is
decals, right? Wash the adhesive off,
which is rather lovely. So that's the sort of the first half of this book. The second half of the book, I say it in halves because the book is being designed in different files, which will all be brought together. But the second half of the book will include a kinetic 48 scale kit, and it will include 2 Hasegawa kits. an F104C and a TF104G that's in Italian markings, in Italian anniversary markings, in fact. And it will also include another build, which I will show you at some point down the line.
Now, having seen that this evening with those Japanese Phantoms, I've been thinking this for years. Is just Japanese starfighter. I really like to build a Japanese starfighter, but then being a bit of a masochist for building old models, I'd also at some stage actually like to have a crack at the old Eshi F104.
The 48 scale one or the 72nd scale?
No, the 72nd scale. No, not the 48 scale one. 72nd scale one, because I've seen it built, and it's apparently it's a very nice kit. And again, a bit like that Matchbox one, I just have a bucket list thing of old kits I want to tick off.
Well, one of the ones I'm a bit like that, because although it won't feature in this book because I don't think I've got space, but I've got one of the Haskell 32nd scale ones as well. That's in Japanese markings, and it's lovely.
They just look cool. But then again, what aeroplane in Japanese markings doesn't look cool?
Well, I did slightly foolhardy of me, I appreciate, but I did say that I'm not entirely sure there is an Air Force that has aircraft that look better than Japanese Air Force in terms. Once you start putting those red and white roundels onto Japanese aircraft, anything looks great in those markings, doesn't it? So, but yeah, so the book is being worked on at the moment. It has been redesigned this week. That's kind of where my head is at. And the plan is for this book to be with readers, all being well, by the end of April. So that's kind of where we are. It will also be the same length as the Harrier book. So it will be the biggest of the books that I've done, sheer because of the sort of the amount of material that's in this. I've already done half of it, and I was thinking, hang on a minute. Normally this is these amount of pages. Normally it's like 60 odd pages, but it is going to be longer. It's going to be 80 pages, which is what the Harrier book was. So all being well, it'll all come together and it'll all be done. So hopefully you've enjoyed sort of seeing the new layouts and everything. I'm really pleased with the way this book looks. It's got that kind of look that I like. I like it to be clean and tidy. So all being well, it'll sort of show you, and you can get plenty from it. So that's sort of where I've been. But I've also been working on a car. Back here. I've been working on that Lotus Europa as well, which I hope to, with a bit of luck, it'll be ready for Wednesday. So I'll be able to, I'll send you some photographs. Hopefully you'll be able to sort of see some photographs, and Sir Andy of Farmer will be happy that I've finally finished his, the Lotus Europa. But it's lovely. It has to be said. It is very, very nice. So yeah, brilliant stuff.
Right, I've just got one more story to talk about this evening, and that is, some of you may have seen on our timeline that Lyndon Davis, the chief executive of Hornby, has rescued the Hawker Hunter that's sat outside the old Humbrol factory at Marfleet. This aircraft it just scrolls down to the bottom. It was XF509, and as I say, it's been sat on a pole, pretty much kind of neglected for the best part of 15 years since Humbrol's demise. It's going down to Margate, and Lyndon says that it will be restored, repainted, and it's going to serve as a tribute to some of the people at Hornby that sadly we've lost in recent times, because there's a couple of people we've lost, including Daryl. So I think that's an absolutely fabulous gesture, and I'm looking forward to seeing that back in its flying colours again down at Margate sometime. I think it's, I think it's a great gesture, and I think it's, just one of those things that will. What can you say? It's a good news story, and I think we had our conversations this week about sometimes how this hobby can just be a little bit kind of inward looking, and I think this is a fabulous story. So yeah, brilliant. And we've got one more story as well, but we'll end on that. So, anything else, or are we done?
I think we're done. I think we've it's nice to have been able to look at new kits that have come in. I've also I think we might sort of do this on Wednesday and have a slight add-on to Wednesday, if that's okay. I'm sort of dropping this in there.
Absolutely.
Because I've just taken delivery of 2 new Airfix kits, the Buccaneer S2B and also the 48 scale Blender Mark 1, which I'm sure you're sort of. So and as Airfix have sent those to us, I think we might have a little look at those on Wednesday, if that's okay. Just to sort of kind of round them up a little bit. Do we have a topic of conversation for Wednesday that's not?
No, I think we're just
sued by various people.
No, we'll just freeform it on Wednesday. We might also explain the geography of how kind of things might turn up in Australia sooner than they do in the UK, because Australia is closer to the Far East than the UK is. But we'll talk about that another time. So I think we're all getting geared up here to watch Match of the Day too, aren't we?
No, I would rather shove a drumstick.
I was going to say I was going to watch The Terror, but The Terror could be the excellent AMC television series.
I tell you exactly what I'm going to do. Yes, exactly. Well, I tell you exactly what I'm going to do now. I am going to go and make myself. I'm going to go and heat up the pizza, or the remains of the pizza that I had last night, for a little bit of supper, and then I'm going to go and play on Assassin's Creed for 2 hours. That is my plan of action. I'm going to play on Assassin's Creed Valhalla for 2 hours and just relax and forget about everything until tomorrow morning, when I start in earnest on these phantoms.
I'm going to go make a hot drink, and then I'm back on the air at 9 o'clock with more Sunday Night Ghost Stories.
A hot drink? Hang on a minute.
I'm cold.
Is this not an alcoholic endeavour?
No, the hot drink is to prepare. Obviously, once the show starts, then anyway, we won't talk about that. It just remains to say thank you.
Hold your horses a little minute. Have we discussed this before? Because Jose has said, how about a conversation on Wednesday night on Eschi?
Yeah, well, I would like to do Eschi at some stage in the future, but perhaps not Wednesday, because I think on Wednesday we're going to have a lot to talk about in terms of updating on projects. So I think I think Eschi really does need a full kind of like 90-minute show. So
further down the line. So
Jose, we will be doing an Eschi special.
We might do it over a week, because we both absolutely adore Eschi. So this could be something that we just start, I don't know, 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning and still carry on talking about it at 10 o'clock Saturday night.
The same as we're going to do a Matchbox special. Of course, we're going to do a Matchbox special.
How is that ever going to be crammed into an hour and a half?
We'll do the Eschi special.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So it just remains to say thank you to everybody who's watching tonight. Sorry we weren't able to read out all your names this evening, because as you see, it's been an action-packed show, of which we probably wasted at least 10-15 minutes talking about football and television shows, but never mind. On that note, as always, stay safe, stay out of trouble. We will see you Wednesday. And I think it's fair to say thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you, Mr. P. Let's go away and do our separate things now.
Indeed.
So, as ever, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
And we will leave you tonight with this. Good night.
Good night.